Hi.
Welcome everyone. Welcome Bella. Great to see you. Yeah, really thrilled. Got something a little bit different for everyone today. I have got Bella, who is a developer. She has developed 2 of her own homes over the last 10 years and is doing something a little bit out there to sell the property, or she's going to raffle, or is currently raffling her property. So a really, really interesting interview today, and I'm really looking forward to this because when we first started chatting about it, I was like, wow, that is just so interesting. Not only all that you have done before to develop your own properties, but to go down this alternative route at the end. So yeah, Bella, just introduce yourself. Just let us know, who you are. Are you a mum? Are you married? All of these kind of things, so that we can get to know you a little bit more.
Cool. So, hi, Emma. Thanks for having me on today. So, my name is Bella, and yeah, I have 2 boys. I'm married to Nick. We live in Battle in East Sussex. Our 2 boys have been home ed for the last, since the COVID times. So, we have quite a busy life with 2 teenage boys at home. And we have built 2 houses in the last 10 years. I've moved 27 times in my life, but over the last 10 years, we've done 2 big house builds. So our whole world is really all about property. Nick and I met only, I think it's about 18, 19 years ago. And whilst we bought our first house as a new build, we then went from there to a cottage, which we did a big extension on, 2-story extension. And then the journey kind of started from there, where we decided rather than just worrying about an extension, we'd build a full-on house. And here we are. Yeah, a few years on from that with our second one.
I love it. I love it. And in fairness, we have an awful lot in common, don't we? So I live about, I don't know, 20 minutes away from Bella. I'm also just on the edge of the Sussex-Kent border. We also both, I home educated my boys as well. I've got twin boys. So yes, we literally have, and we've even got sort of friends in common, haven't we? So yeah, it's been quite an interesting situation. So yeah, let's go back. I'd love to talk to you about the build basically, and how you got there. So obviously you just mentioned that you bought a property and you did an extension, and that kind of gave the thought process, did it? How did it come to the fact where you've built this incredible property?
So I was always really interested in architecture and have always had a love for creating, lovely spaces. I'm a Taurian, and where I live, it doesn't matter if it's if we're on holiday and we're camping or we're staying in a little log cabin somewhere, I always want to make it as beautiful as I possibly can, because I feel so much happier when I'm in a place which is tidy and clean and aesthetically really pleasing. So I've always been very sort of interested in interiors and property. And I think what happened was in the when we moved from the new build into the cottage, and there was so much potential with the house, but it was just, a question of working out how we could make it a better space, because it was far too small for us. We bought it because we just loved the actual location. It was very close to the boys' kindergarten that they were going to, but in reality, it was too small for us. So it was just going through that process of how we could create a much nicer space. And then we just watched lots and lots of grand designs. And I think there's another program, Small Spaces. I can't remember the name of the show. You know, the one with George?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think it is called something like Small Spaces or
Yeah,
something.
Amazing Small Spaces or something.
Yeah.
And his colleague is local to us in Lewes, and got really interested in watching those programs. And I think we just thought, well, actually, there's all these people that are building their own properties. Why can't we do it? So we started looking for land. And, before we knew it, our house was on the market and we had a buyer. And then we came across a piece of land which was near to the boys' then school, because they'd moved by that time from the kindergarten to a different school. And we came across this land in Punnetstown, so you'll know, just up the road from Battle. And the first time we went to look at it, it was pouring with rain. It was a really cold, horrible day. And we turned up and we just thought, oh my gosh, this is just it. It's not for us. It's too exposed. It just felt wrong. There was something about it that we just didn't like. And although Punnetstown's a lovely place, and actually there were stunning views to the property, but you couldn't really appreciate them that day because there was this terrible howling gale. And so, yeah, it didn't feel right. We went away, and then we kept on looking, and nothing else was coming up that seemed suitable. And then one day I was back on Rightmove, because you know how it is. You're just constantly on there every single day looking to see what's coming up. And this plot came back on from Punnetstown, because it had gone on the market and gone under offer, sorry. And then it came back on. And I rang Nick, and as I called him, he was calling me to say the same thing. Guess what? The property in Punnetstown is back on the market. And something told us both that we needed to go back and look at it, because they'd reduced the price on it. And so actually, maybe it hadn't gone under offer. Maybe it was just that it had been reduced in price and had been remarketed. And of course, this was a few weeks down the line. The weather was completely different. We went to review. It's a sunny day. We can see down to the sea, because you can see right down to the South Downs. We were like, oh my gosh. So massive lesson for us and for people looking for property. You cannot make a decision from necessarily the first viewing, because things change. Your perspective changes. The price might change. The weather will definitely change. And so when we went the second time, it was just like, oh my gosh, this place is gorgeous. And we sort of realised that there was a lot of potential for development, because there was a little barn there which was able to be potentially converted into a small property. So we just snapped it up. That day we put in an offer and it was accepted. And we, by that point, I think we were already under offer. And so everything then went really quickly. We actually did get gazumped once, but I went and had a chat with the owner, and the guy that gazumped us didn't even have his property on the market. It was a ridiculous scenario. We had to pay a little bit extra for the house, but it was worth it, well, for the land, because there was no property there. It was an old shack and then the barn. Anyway, we moved in not long after that, and we lived in a static caravan and a yurt on site. And
so let's just stop. Let's just go back 2 steps. So that's amazing. So this is I really love these kind of stories. So you got gazumped. So for most people, let's be fair, that would be an absolute disaster. I'm sure in that moment, it was pretty disastrous.
Yeah.
But rather than, and let's be fair, bad things happen to absolutely everyone. SH1T happens, as they say. It's how you go about it. And I certainly see that just in day-to-day stuff, whether it's your kids, whether it's property, whether it's your business, whether it's relationships, whatever it is, these things happen. So you kind of were obviously like, what is going on? But just talk us through how you're already in that conversation, because that's really interesting. And also, I just want to say as well, guys, if you've got any questions, do drop them in. Let us know. And in fact, we are going to put a link so that you can actually follow as well. You can go on to Bella's Facebook page and actually see the property as well. So do talk us through that conversation, because I think that is really interesting.
Yeah, and Emma, by the way, Win a Dream House on Instagram is where we share most of the stories. So that's the best place for people to go, which I couldn't go live on just now, by the way, annoyingly, but never mind. That's one of those things. So yeah, we got gazumped. So we were using the property was being sold through an agent in Heathfield. And I'm just going to double check that nothing's going on. There we go. And yes, like you say, a lot of people would be like, oh my gosh, it's over, finished, we've lost the property. But me being me, and actually talking to a great friend of mine who's been a huge support to us. She used to own her own estate agents, and she's been so fantastic with advice for us about these kind of situations. And talking to her, she's like, look, just go and see the vendor direct. Just turn up, go and see her, and have a conversation. Find out what the scenario is, because the problem is when you go through an estate agent, often things get slightly altered. Chinese whispers can occur, and actually people like to sell to people and buy from people, don't they? And it just felt like the right thing to do. So I went to see the owner, and we had the conversation, and she was absolutely hell-bent that she was going to go with this new person because he was paying her £10,000 extra, which in the big scheme of things is tiny. And like I say, he hadn't even got his house under offer at this point. So it was a kind of mad situation. And so it just took a bit of gentle persuasion, may I say, and we were by that point under offer. So I just had to sell her the whole, story and reassure her that we were absolutely going through with the purchase. And obviously we did end up paying the extra 10,000 on top, which is a bit annoying, but it was all worth it. It was all worth it in the end.
Amazing. And do you mind, are you happy to share figures or?
Yeah, of course. That's
what
fine.
was the purchase price?
So the purchase price was £250,000 for that first plot.
And what was that? So you said it was basically a bit of land, a shack and a barn, you said?
Yeah, in about a quarter of an acre. So it was a small plot. I say small, I mean, that's, and actually it was slightly more than a quarter. It was in between a quarter and a half an acre. And I think we paid originally 240 and then we went to 250, or it was 250 and went to 260. I can't remember which. Yeah. So
fantastic. Okay. So your house went through, you've now, you've agreed to go forward. So presumably, did you go through planning? What was the next steps that you went? Because you must, I mean, this is literally like a dream come true for some people, but also equally a nightmare, because I could imagine, like for me, it's like a blank slate. And actually, I don't really like a blank slate. I actually like something that I can change, like in life. That's just me. Like I'm not very good at starting something, like even an email. I'd rather I had one that I could change. So you literally had, it sounds like a blank canvas. So how did you get from there?
It's so weird you saying that, Emma, because I'm completely the opposite. So for me, I would rather move house
first and then change it.
I'd rather move house than redecorate. It's just like, once I've done the property once, that's it for me. I don't want to have to redo it. So I mean, basically what happened was it was a very stressful move. And I remember that we didn't exchange until very late on. And we all had a target of a completion date, and we landed up sort of doing a very, very quick turnaround between exchange and completion. I remember being with two small children in the cottage, moving to a yurt and a static caravan, thinking, what are we going to need? What are we going to take? What are we going to put into storage? We were on a really tight budget. I mean, I was at that point contacting or looking up like how to build a property for 100K. There was a show on TV because we didn't have a budget. I was like, Nick was saying, what are we going to do? We're just completely mad. But I always am the eternal optimist. I was like, it's going to work out. Something just told me it's going to work out. It'll all be fine. So we moved in very, very stressful circumstances. We didn't even have a removal company. We had to get friends to help us because everything was so last minute. And then we turned up on the plot. It was pouring with rain. At the time, I worked for a friend who had a marquee tent company called LPM Bohemia, and they very kindly lent us a yurt, which we had in the garden. They came and put it up that day.
Which we have more mutual friends, by the way. We'll have a chat about that afterwards.
Oh my gosh, such a small world. Okay, so we turned the yurt into a bedroom, and the static caravan was a kind of living quarters with the office and everything. And we moved in with planning permission. So there was planning, but it was for a property that was much smaller that ran alongside the lane. And it was facing like our neighbour's property rather than the stunning views. And people always say it's very difficult to move the footprint of a property. So we were kind of thinking, well, we're going to probably have to build there, but there's nothing to stop us at least trying to get the planning to have it moved so that we then could take advantage of the beautiful views. And so we didn't rush through with any planning application because, I think it's really important wherever you live that you ground yourself and you obviously kind of get to know the place before you start thinking about, big changes like building a house. So we moved in. And actually what we decided to do was focus on renovating the barn first. And so actually Nick and his brother, who's a builder, and some other people that we had on board, converted this barn into a 2-bedroom little, I mean, it was tiny property that we then moved into about 6 months later. So I think we moved in the springtime, and by Christmas we were able to move in out of the bedroom of the yurt, which was freezing, and we moved into this little barn, which was just gorgeous, and compared to the yurt was huge, but it really was tiny. And we lived there, and then by this point we had been starting the application for the actual house to be moved onto the top part of the land, which is where the caravan was, which then took on this stunning view. I mean, it was really beautiful. And I can't remember quite the timings of it, but what basically happened was we got on really well with the planning consultant, which is great, because so many times the local councils get really, bad flack, don't they? But actually, Wealdon District Council were brilliant to us, and they really were very, very kind. We went down and had a pre-surgery meeting with them and went through all of the ideas about what we could do. And then they actually were the ones that said to us, that you might be able to get planning to separate the barn from the rest of the plot and sell it off independently. Well, this was huge because we hadn't got a big enough budget to build the house. So we were still trying to work out what we were going to do. But
Can
obviously,
sort of reiterate there. So I know you said that you hear lots of horror stories. There are definitely lots of horror stories, and I'm not saying that there aren't councils that can be a little bit challenging along the way, but there is also that remit. You've talked about being ever the eternal optimist. You've talked about all of these other things, and this will be one of those things. You've gone in very open. You've had these pre-planning at meetings. You've laid your cards on the table. This is what we want to do. This is where we'd like to go. And then you get the positive response from that. So again, as I say, sometimes it is, not as easy as that. But actually, when you go out of your way to be what you want to be and treat them how you want to be treated, you'd be amazed how much easier it can be.
Exactly.
We've just had something recently with us in the garden. We've built something and we thought we were going to have to knock it down. And, just through this constant, I mean, sometimes I felt like I was begging, but it did work out. So I think don't make it out that I'm sure there is lots of people with that same council that have had a nightmare, but I think you went about it in a certain way, and it is looking at what is it that both sides are looking for as well. And I think
that's exactly it. And I think they really appreciated that we didn't go in with the full drawings of exactly what we wanted, and it was like playing a little bit to their tune and saying, what do you think would work here? And there's a lot of egos involved, but it worked. It was definitely the way forward. And I think because we didn't have any really big fancy ideas as well, it was very in keeping with the local area. And so, so that's exactly it. It was all about building relationships, which is life, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's what it's all about.
Exactly. So did you then, so it sounds like they then gave you this amazing opportunity to split the title of the barn, sell that off. Presumably in the process they then gave you permission, and then did that kind of fund it? How did it move?
Exactly that. I mean, it was the best news ever when they told us that they would look at separating it, and then when they actually confirmed they could do it, then it just opened up, obviously all the opportunities for us financially. And so they kind of happened separately. So we sold off we got the permission to sell off the barn first. And then we got the planning for the property, because I think it worked out, if we got rejected on one, then it meant the whole thing would be rejected. So it was better to do it that way around. And so then we were in a very different position.
I just wanted, on a technicality there, you can split the title in your own property. You don't necessarily need planning permission, but there are other nuances. So definitely, if you're looking at doing that, guys, make sure you get some really good advice, because you don't actually need planning to split the title of your own property. But if you've got properties that belong to each other, then obviously you can't necessarily have it owned by other people. So that's where
that's where we needed to have that. That's it. So yeah, so I mean, it's all a little bit of a blur, and obviously this is our old house rather than our current house. So we then got the planning all sorted on the new build, which was actually a kit house we bought from a Scottish company, and so we went for it was like a Scottish longhouse design,
Wow.
and it basically came on a lorry, SIP panels, so all fully insulated panels that basically come like a huge Lego set, and they just build the house in a week. You basically go from the foundations up in the space of a week or 10 days. I mean, it was ridiculously quick and quite scary actually how quickly these kind of properties can be built. And I personally, although it was a fantastic design, this time we decided to go for a timber frame property. We had a bigger budget, and I much prefer that process myself, only because it feels more permanent. It feels like I don't know, it just feels more grounded to the plot. And so yeah, we put this SIP panel first, and I would definitely say if you're on a tighter budget, that's the way to build. And there are all kinds of really eco-friendly materials you can use now, because the traditional SIP, the insulation that they use is actually very toxic and it leaches into the ground. And looking back, had I've known that, we might not have gone down that route, but we all live in,
Absolutely. You only know what you know, don't you?
That's it,
So
exactly.
you built this property, and it sounds like you had lots of tumultuous times, but inherently you ended up selling off part of it, which then paid for the next one. So what then happened? Did you go, oh, did you presumably stay there for a number of years, and then it sounds like you got itchy feet, it needed decorating, and you thought, oh, I better do it again?
Exactly that. So we were there for 3 years, and when I was little, I always had a dream about having a swimming pool. I didn't ever dream about a big white wedding. It was just like, when I'm a grown up, I really want a swimming pool. I love bodies of water. And it was just one of those like childhood dreams. We used to go to friends that had a pool, and I was always like, oh, this is just the best. I love that whole social thing around a swimming pool. It's really lovely. So when we built the property in Punnettstown, we didn't have the budget for the pool. And so I was always like, do you know what? I really want to build another house so we can budget in the pool. And that was like the major driving force, which is ridiculous. But it was, it's a big passion of mine. And I'd always just had that dream. So 3 years down the line, we decided to put the house on the market. We sold it through this great friend of mine.
So what was it then worth, if you don't mind me asking?
We sold it for 650. So
Wow.
we did really well, because obviously we'd bought the plot for 250. We sold off the barn for 250. So we were then obviously back to zero, really, in terms of our outlay. And then we built the house for around 300, so maybe 350. So we did really well, and
it came out with 300,000.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
3 years, that's not bad, is it?
Yeah, it was really good, and it was beautiful, and it felt like such an accomplishment as well. The house looked really lovely where it was positioned, where we managed to get it agreed to be moved. It looked gorgeous, and we were super proud of it. But we sold it to a lovely family, and we were buying another plot, which was in Cowbeach, just near Rushlake Green, and it fell through. And they sort of, at the very last minute, pulled out on us just as we were exchanging on our house.
No.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience. An elderly couple that were farmers, and actually it was 2 huge chicken sheds that had planning for these incredible 2 modern building houses. And we decided that we were going to buy both of them and sell one of the plots off. And it was stunning. It was absolutely beautiful, the location. But there were some issues, and we were a bit concerned. There were some red flags about access, and just this kind of sense that we were going to be moving on to like our parents' land, even though they weren't our parents. There were just lots of little things that were being said that didn't quite sit as well as they should have done. And then suddenly they pulled out on us, and it was in that instance a very good thing. We decided to walk away from it. We just knew that there were just too many red flags. So it was quite upsetting, because we suddenly were like, God, what are we going to do? But we ended up renting a property through where the boys used to go to school. There was a house owned by the headmistress right on the land. It was beautiful. And we rented there. And then we had to start all over again to find some land.
Yeah.
But you know, that whole thing about what's meant to be is meant to be. It definitely felt like this was, you know, the right thing to do. So we moved over to Stonegate, and we were there every day, waking up on the internet, calling all the agents, going through the whole process all over again. Found the plot that we bought in the end in
And do you
Battle.
think, sorry, just as a question,
Yeah.
do you think there's a different way that you found for looking for land rather than a property? Because obviously properties, there seems to be a lot, well, from my understanding, you know, there's three, you know, dime a dozen with properties out there, obviously totally different. But land seems to be quite restrictive. And then on top of that, it's the land where you might be able to build. I mean, I think there's plenty of land potentially just to buy. You can buy a bit of woodland, you can buy this, that, and the other. But if you're actually looking to put a house on it, so how did you kind of go around that? Did you kind of funnel it down? Did you manage to have quite a good method of going ahead?
Well, I mean, you can obviously go onto the local council's websites, can't you? And you can look up the properties or land that's got planning permission applications on. So we were always doing that and talking to agents. I mean, it was a lot of like going to visit the farm agents or, you know, land management companies, just talking to as many people as possible. And also having that belief that the right place was going to come up. And it was a similar scenario with here. So we did find this just on Rightmove. And so, you know, all those other conversations were great, but actually we landed up just that whole thing of going on Rightmove every day. The property came up, forgive me, when it came up, it was under offer. So we found it on there, but it was under offer. It's one of those scenarios.
And was it just a piece of land, or did it have a property on it as well?
Had a property here, which was uninhabited and had been uninhabited for years. It was a single story little house. Now, the interesting thing was that we came here originally to view the farmhouse, which is behind us. And we're in the curtilage. Originally, we were in the curtilage of the Grade 2 listed farmhouse behind us. And we came to look at that because that was on the market. And we thought, oh my gosh, well, we'd much rather buy this plot rather than doing a renovation. We'd much rather buy the plot. But we were looking at everything at that point. But the plot was under offer. And so, you know, we kind of thought, oh, well, never mind. When the farmhouse wasn't right, it needed loads of work. And it was a big property with, you know, all those Grade 2 listed restrictions on it. It was messy. And so, although it's a beautiful, beautiful house. So we walked away from it and just thought, oh, that plot was so gorgeous, but that was that. And then a few weeks later, like it kept playing in my mind, oh, what if it comes back on? You know, what if it all falls through? And sure enough, it did. We saw it come up, and I think we got a call from the agent that day. And so we already knew the lands because we'd already seen it from the farmhouse perspective. And so when we came to view it, we just straight away put in an offer again. And we were really quick off the mark. And so, yeah, they accepted it. And
what was that? What was that for?
I think we paid 400 for it, maybe about 400, so a little bit more.
And what was and how big is the plot?
Half an acre.
Half an acre?
Yeah, just over actually, just over half an acre. And again, with stunning views.
Amazing.
So lucky, yeah.
Did it already have planning permission on that property?
Yeah, again, it did have planning, but the planning was actually to build an extension of the original property that was here. So it was a question of knocking down parts of it, but keeping the central part and doing an extension off there, which was very complicated. And the key thing with that was it meant that we wouldn't get our VAT back because it wasn't then a zero rated new build property. So it was all to do with the fact we were in the curtilage of the listed farmhouse behind us. But again, we had the conservation officer come out and we had a meeting with her, with our architects, and she just really liked the story of how, you know, we've already done a build and we were here doing another one, and she just suddenly was like, Actually, do you know what? There isn't really a significant enough reason why this is going to require the build to be an extension. Like, there's nothing that we're actually saving here. I mean, it was literally it was like 70s sliding doors. There was breeze blocks. There was nothing about it of historical interest. And so she took a really sensible approach. Yes, there was a lot of buttering up going on, but took a really sensible approach and said, do you know what? You can knock the whole thing down and we'll do it as a new build. It was like, get in there. Because obviously that was...
did the calculator start coming out?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah, I was like, this is it was amazing. Not just from the practical point of view, that trying to do an extension on a bit of a higgledy-piggledy building, but also financially, it was just huge for us. So yeah, we were very, very lucky. So we then had to reapply for the planning. We basically redesigned the house. It's in the same footprint, but it's bigger, quite a lot bigger than what the original planning was kind of accepted as. And yeah.
So sorry, again, now just going back a step. So when it came to the design, so obviously you came from having this very not very straightforward and probably not that easy to do extension, and now suddenly you've got this opportunity to create basically what you want with your swimming pool, all of this. So had you already had in your mind what this was going to look like? Who did you go and use? How did you create this design?
So, I mean, just thinking back, so we contacted various architects, but actually it became very clear that we couldn't really tread on the toes of the architect that had already done the planning. And that was something that I didn't know. I mean, they actually were brilliant. But we'd gone out to a couple of different architects who had kind of really made a name for themselves in the area. And, you know, I felt that was really important. We got the designer absolutely right. But actually, we went back to the original the original planning company and used them, and they were fantastic. And in terms of the design, I mean, it was all just, I think my real sort of I don't want to say talent, but the way that I work is I'm really good at imagining something before it's being created. So I do have a very good way of sort of seeing things in 3D in my head and being able to sort of walk through a property in my imagination. And that is, it's quite a nice, it's quite a nice thing. Yeah, it's quite a nice thing to have, because it then makes it so much easier when you're thinking about how the property is going to work and be designed. Whereas a lot of people can only work from plans. For me, it's all in my head. And
so did you literally sit down with somebody and just literally sort of, you know, throw it out to them? This is what I'm thinking, and then they put it all down on the paper?
Yes, yeah, exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. And so I sat with the guy who was like doing all the CAD drawings for hours, going through like, oh, I just want to do, you know, just, so it was a lot of it comes, you know, from us, because I think often this is the way with architecture. When you're building new properties, the architects kind of do the drawings, but a lot of the inspiration comes from the people that are actually going to be living in the property, because they're the ones that know. We're the ones that know what we want our house to be like, and the flow and everything else. The key things, obviously the technical details. And one of the biggest mistakes that I made was although in hindsight I'm glad we made it, the architects kind of explained to me that the original plans and the original house that was here were on 2 levels. So it was a single story, but it was on 2 levels because the garden slopes away. And what they suggested was to keep this drop down on one side because of the cost of the foundations when you've got to build up and keep everything level on a slope. But having built a house, and actually our previous house, the foundations weren't that expensive, because they were basically Nick, my husband, and a really great friend that we've made, who's become like a kind of right-hand man. They did the foundations themselves, because Andy, this friend, that's what he used to do. He's retired now, but that's what he did. So I was like, oh, it's fine. The foundations, they're not going to cost that much. It's fine, no problem. So I said, I want it all on one level. It's really important because I want to create this courtyard with a swimming pool. And if it drops down on one side, it's going to completely lose that whole feeling. And I wasn't thinking about the cost. I was just thinking about the aesthetics. if I had have known what we then discovered, that these foundations, there was no way that we could do them ourselves. They needed like a big company to come in and do them. And the cost was huge because, yeah, concrete had gone up massively in cost. So it was a bit of a mistake. Our foundations cost a lot of money, and it's always a bit frustrating that the money's going.
And what did they cost? Can you remember what the foundations cost?
I actually can't. I can ask Nick, but we're talking probably about 50 to 60, 70,000. It was a lot of money.
Very
a lot of money to be going into the ground, you know.
Yeah, nothing that you can tangibly hug and go, oh, I'm so pleased I did this. It's like disappeared into the ground.
Yeah. So that was hard. And we had a lot of issues with the foundations because it was very, very wet when we were building. And there was a lot of problems with the foundations, but we got there in the end. But so in terms of the drawings, it was all just architects very patient, you know, because they were changed quite a lot. You know, there were a lot of changes, different ideas. So, and I'm like, I need to do this.
Yeah. So had you already, so obviously you're sitting down doing this, had you already kind of got it completely in your mind and it was literally just them replicating the picture in your mind onto the paper? Or was it as things progressed, you were kind of like, oh, actually, you know, that's not really going to be suitable, the bedroom there and the kitchen there or whatever? Was it more of a progression? How did that kind of design go?
No, once we'd like made the decisions with the architect before it went to planning, we didn't make any changes after that. So we absolutely made sure that we were, you know, completely 100%. But we did make lots of changes before that. So at one point, the room that I'm now sitting in was going to be the kitchen. And this room is like the northeast side of the house. And I kind of had this vision that this would be the nicest place for the kitchen because it gets the evening sun and it gets the morning sun as well, actually, through the windows that you can see behind me. The morning sun comes over there, but it's a triple aspect room and it looks out on beautiful views and everything else. But actually, it was the conservation officer that was like, are you sure you don't want to put the kitchen in like the central part of the house? Because that's where the sitting room is going to be. And the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, you know what, she's got a point. And so it was really just making sure before we put the planning in that we talked to lots of people, we got lots of different ideas, and then working out what really felt right for us. So that was key. Yeah, that was key.
I love that. I think sometimes I hear people who are a bit fearful because they don't have all the knowledge. And actually, like we all say to everyone, no question is a stupid question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, you went out there, you didn't try to be, you know, you had your ideas, but to then be really open to what people are suggesting. And obviously there were some that you weren't so open to with the foundations. But I think being as open as possible to have all this information, and even with kind of problems, and I'm sure there were others along the way, it's talking to as many people. In fact, I just had a meeting with a new bookkeeper this morning, and there were a couple of things I just had no idea about. And just from that quick conversation has completely opened my mind to a whole new element of something. So, yeah, I love the fact that you literally went out of your way to find as many people to talk to as possible to get as much info to help you at that moment, because you definitely don't know what you don't know, do you?
Absolutely right. Absolutely. And there's just so much that you can gain from talking to other people that have either been through a similar experience or, you know, they work in the industry. So yeah, that was absolutely incremental to the build. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so we've now got the design. You obviously got the planning. Can you remember how long that took?
No, I think probably about
in this kind of little property.
We had moved on site, which is a thing I would really recommend for anyone doing a build, because there were so many times when the builders needed us, and it was, you know, early in the morning. We might not have been here had we been living off site. We moved into 2 static caravans. We upgraded to 2. Oh my God, when we moved out for the last one, I said, I'm never ever doing that again. It was just hideous, the whole thing. The original caravan on the first plot was really old, and it was just so damp and just smelly, and oh my God, it was just awful. And so I'd said, never again. And suddenly we were buying another plot, and I found myself in Rye Harbour at a static caravan company choosing these new caravans, although again, they weren't new, they were old. And we upgraded this one, had double glazing, which was great. One of them had heating.
Oh my
Well,
God.
it was, but you know what? And it
Was
was,
that with Jumbo?
no,
Oh, okay.
no. Do you know what? I actually can't remember the name of the company, Rye Static Traders or something along those lines. Anyway, they were brilliant. And they turned up on these massive, you know, great lorries, and our lane is tiny, and it's a really quite a sort of, you know, we live on a farm track. It's quite an intricate sort of position to get into, but we managed to get them in, you know, by hook or by crook. We had to take down half of our neighbour's apple tree, which was really embarrassing, but they were brilliant about it. And you know, just I was desperate to keep the apple tree. We had to lob off a few big branches, and it took a long time, but we did get them in the end. And so yeah, we lived on site in the caravans. And sorry, Emma, what was the question that you asked?
No, that's great. And then so how did you then fund this then? So obviously you'd had this all coming in. I know you'd obviously had some money before.
Yeah.
How did you go about funding this? Was this through development finance?
Yeah, so we took out a self-build mortgage. So once we'd actually we bought the plot with cash from the profits of our previous sale, and then we took out a self-build mortgage, which you may know you have to draw it down in stages. So you won't just get given all the money and have it sitting in your account. It's all done in phases. Once the foundations were laid, then they release some more funds, and it
in tranches, I think they call it, don't they? That kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly that. So it was, and actually it was so much easier this time because, you know, we were much more aware of how to do everything. You know, once you've been through one build, you understand at least some of the pitfalls. So on that side, because that can cause a lot of anxiety, not knowing when you're going to get the money, how you're going to be able to finish the build. But what was really the big thing for us is that we moved on onto the plot in the August of 2019. And by the December of 2019, there was all the rumblings about the, you know, crazy COVID times coming. And when we actually ordered our frame for delivery, they got it to us the day that they shut down their whole factory. And they were shut down for about 3 or 4 months. So we were seriously lucky because you must, you know, obviously you're aware that all of the material costs went up massively. Yeah. And we were just, what I always joke about saying, we were like ahead of the curve, because every time we got delivery of our plaster, then suddenly there was all this kind of like talk about plaster going massively up in price, and the same with all the timber, and then everything was running out. And I mean, it was just a nightmare, but we had God looking after us because we were just literally ahead of the dramas with everything. So it was, yeah. It was pretty cool.
And so what was the construction of it? So it's obviously a kind of is it like a U shape with a swimming pool in the middle? That's kind of like how I see it from the pictures.
Here, I could show you. Yeah, you can see there.
So basically it's a U shape and the swimming pool in front. And so what was the construction of it?
So this is made from a timber frame. So rather than SIP panels, it's timber frame. And on the techie side, I'm not so good, although I can talk about the cladding and the triple glazed windows and everything else, but the actual frame itself is a timber frame, and it was put up by a local framer, ALF timber frames, and they were fantastic, and all of them were able to turn up because they didn't have any jobs away because they weren't allowed to stay in hotels. So we had a team of people that were just totally dedicated to our build because they couldn't go anywhere, which was fantastic. Another great reason to use local tradesmen. So yeah, it's a timber frame rather than SIP panel.
Wow. And so how long did the build happen then? So obviously it basically, it started, you know, so was it August it started?
We actually started in the January, so we moved in. We'd already got our planning underway by that point, but when we moved in, we'd already got the planning accepted. We just thinking about the foundation started in the January, and the timber frame arrived in the April. So, or I think the lockdown started about the 24th or 26th of March, didn't they?
Yeah.
The timber frame company delivered sometime in April. And we actually moved into part of the house in the October of that year.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it?
That's what happens when you've got a lockdown and a whole load of tradesmen that can come and work on your property. Yeah, it was amazing.
And did you manage the whole build yourself? Did you get somebody in with you? How did that whole process work?
Yeah, no, I basically project managed ourselves, because for us it was like, we've already done one build. We project managed the last build ourselves, and it just felt, it felt like the right thing to do. Because often with a project manager, and I know they bring so much information and experience and expertise, but for us it was, it was possible that we could manage it ourselves, and the team were just brilliant, so it made it quite straightforward.
And when it came to it sounds like when it came to the internals, you just knew exactly what you wanted already. Is that kind of the way it worked?
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of the layout, yes. In terms of what I needed, in terms of bathroom and sanitary ware, all easy peasy. Paint colours, whole different ball game. I really struggle with choosing paint colours.
Oh, that's so unexpected. I just thought you had it like boom.
No, I went round and round in circles with paint, because it can really change a room, can't it? And it's all about the lighting. And I'd fallen in love with quite an industrial looking style house that had won some House of the Year competition. But it was the paint colour was like a prison colour, like a grey, very, very grey colour. And I have a great friend, Wendy Hart, who, if I was on live stream now, she'll be maybe watching it, because if it's on Instagram, because she is and has been the most incredible support to me. And she's an interior designer, and she and I talked through, all the scenarios about paints and colours. And I know she was a bit nervous about this grey, but we did use it, and we used it over on the boys' side. And then what we did as a sort of lighter version for the kitchen, but then we went much warmer in this room, for instance, our bedroom. But paint colours and me, I really, that's something I really am quite not fearful. I don't want to use the word fearful, but I find very difficult to choose. So, and in terms of the kitchen as well, I designed the layout of the kitchen with Wendy's help, and that took a long time. I'd say the hours that I spent on working out exactly where everything was going to go was almost as long as building, choosing or completing the design of the house.
Yeah.
Because it's really key. You get one thing wrong, and it can really mess up the way that things flow. So so in one respect, yes, and in another respect, the interior side is something that I find more difficult. Yeah.
But you got that help and support, so that's a great thing there.
Yes.
And so then obviously, gosh, you built it really, really quickly. And how much did the build cost?
Oh gosh, now you're asking, Emma. I can't. It worked out about £2,000 a square metre all in, and it's 280 square metres. So what are we talking?
So 280 square metres times 2,000, was it?
Yeah.
So 560.
Yeah, so all in about 560. And that includes actually our pool, which was an extra 30,000 all in. So, I know that builds in, 10 years ago, you could budget a local build at sort of 1,200 to 1,500 quid, but costs now have just rocketed, haven't they? So about 2,000 a square metre.
Amazing. So basically you're all in at about $1 million, yeah?
Yeah, I'd say I'm probably being a bit harsh. It was probably slightly less than that. It was probably more around the sort of 900.
Okay.
Because don't forget, we got all the VAT back on our build as well. So we did. It's worked out. it's worked out well because the property is valued at 1.5.
Wow.
I mean, if we picked this up and plonked it in London or put it in Oxfordshire or somewhere, you know, we're talking serious money. But Battle is a, you know, in you know, when you compare to other places in the southeast, it's quite an inexpensive place, although it's so gorgeous.
Yeah,
As you know, Battle's just a lovely place.
really beautiful. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Gorgeous.
Amazing. So you've basically gone through this entire journey. You've built this absolutely beautiful house. Obviously, the family love it. It must be amazing. And then, and the reason that kind of, well, we met through varying things.
Yes.
But you've now decided to put it up for raffle. Talk us through that. That's incredible.
Yeah, some say incredible, others say completely bonkers.
Well, we love it either way. It's fabulous.
Yeah. So, you know, we got to the 3 years of living here. It's like, right, it's time to move because I don't want to redecorate. Yeah, I'm joking. It doesn't need redecorating. It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And but we both, Nick and I, felt that we had another project in us, and it was like, okay, well, if we don't do it now, it might be too late, and we might just think, oh, you know, we've got to a certain time in life where just we weren't necessarily going to be building a house again. So we thought, well, let's just go for it now. And this was actually about a year and a half ago, and we actually put the house on the market. And we had a buyer, but really sadly, my mum got cancer, and it was a very difficult time. She passed away in the December 18 months ago now. And then my dad got ill, and my dad had this terrible virus, which, well, we're not 100% sure it's a virus, but something that attacked his brain. He's got a horrible condition which has affected his limbic region of his brain. And so we had to like make some big decisions throughout that period, one of which was to take the house off the market and, you know that it was not the right time to be moving. So that aside, I think it was October, November of last year, having conversation with a home ed group near here called Hope, talking about fundraising ideas. And we just suddenly came up with this mad idea. What about like doing a raffle on a house? I was like, I could raffle my house and we could make, you know, you an affiliate, because I found out all about these affiliate options. We could raise some money for some local charities and sell our house a completely different way, which would give someone the opportunity to potentially win our house after only spending £5. So it's like, okay, this is fantastic. Not only do we then obviously raise some money to give the house away and have this amazing situation where someone that might never have been able to afford a property like this could win it for a £5, but also raise money for 2 local homeless charities, which I'm really passionate about. I have I can't believe in this day and age that we've got people sleeping on the streets in this country. The disparity between, you know, the rich and those that have fallen on harder times, sleeping rough, is just, I can't quite believe that is allowed to happen. And so I'm really passionate about supporting charities that help those people that have fallen on harder times. They're not glamorous charities, but they're really important. And so we've chosen to support Warming Up the Homeless, which is a charity based in Bexhill, and they have a shop in Battle. And then I was telling you about this friend that's been absolutely amazing helping us with property advice. She used to own her own estate agents called Burgess & Co, but she also volunteers for the Matthew 25 Mission, which is a homeless charity in Eastbourne. And so it absolutely felt right. She does lots of work for them. In fact, she's on the board there and very, has put a lot of her love and time into supporting the charity. So it felt absolutely the right thing that we would support them. And then also, local organisations that want to sign up as affiliates like Hope, who are on a mission to raise a lot of money to, basically they want to build an all year round event space. And so it feels like a really great thing. They can, instead of doing crowdfunding and just asking people to give them money, they are crowdfunding in a different way where they're affiliates for the raffle. So everyone that's giving money has the chance to win the house, and they are earning 10% commission on all the ticket sales. So they've really sort of helped with getting the word out there. They're really excited about it. So yes, it just felt like, my goodness, there's so many people that can benefit from this. It's really fun, and at the same time, it'd be a really interesting experience. So that's why we decided to do that. And we thought, you know what, if it doesn't work, then we can put the house back on the market in the spring. So, that's kind of what led us down that route, because we would never have put the house on in the winter anyway. So it definitely was right that we waited until the spring. So we thought, we've got nothing to lose. And
amazing.
We are.
It's so, and just to say that if it doesn't, if I understand, if you don't sell enough tickets to reach what is required to have it sold, somebody still wins, don't they? They still win a big, huge chunk of money anyway. Yeah, so it's not like, oh, everyone loses their fiver. Everyone still gets a chance to either win a huge lump sum of money or a £1.5 million house. So exactly. Pretty amazing, isn't it?
Exactly. And a lot of people actually, I think, would almost prefer the cash, even if it wasn't as much as the house, because they might not want to move from where they are. But importantly, they don't. If someone wins the house and they don't want to move in, they can rent it out and they can make an income. Last year, we actually looked on Airbnb, and we decided to put it up on Airbnb, and we put it down for a minimum of 30 days to rent out. And it was £25,000 for that period. And we actually we had it rented out, but we ended up pulling out of it because of my dad being ill, and I was looking after him here with joint caring with my sister. But we did straight away. We had some people from Ireland actually that were going to rent it, two families or two couples. So it was shared between obviously two different families. And yeah, it was £25,000 for 4 weeks. It's a great way of making an income. If you win the house, you don't have to move in, just rent it out as a holiday house.
That is incredible. Yeah. Incredible. So tell us a bit about it. So I know obviously we've been talking about the raffle, and then obviously you've now become, I know you said to me when you first started out you didn't really know or didn't do much on social media, and now you've been on French TV, you've been on TV elsewhere. Tell us where you've been advertising.
Yeah, so yes, exactly right. When we first sort of launched the raffle, I hadn't even been on Instagram for about 2 years. I was completely not interested in social media. I didn't want it in my life, and I was really happy not having it. But obviously, once we launched the raffle, it became very apparent I need to get myself on social media. And so we've grown quite a following. I mean, it's tiny in comparison with some accounts, but we've got 1,075 followers, which is brilliant. I've really focused on the Instagram more than Facebook, only because it's, for us, it's all about the visuals, and it just felt like the right place. And it's actually been really difficult getting support from from national press. I think because Omaze, which is another big, become almost a household.
Maybe it's because they just love advertising bad news, and this is something really, really nice and really good. And that's something that we maybe sort of highlight. And that's where I find personally that, again, if you can clear yourself of, YouTube and Facebook, which block you if you don't say the right things.
Yes, absolutely.
I actually think it's amazing that we have this social media where you can put stuff out there, and we can now choose that. So personally, I choose not to go with the the national newspapers or the national news, because it doesn't give you that that you want. So amazing. So
that's interesting. So I personally haven't picked up a newspaper. I don't watch the news. I don't listen to the radio, because it's just so fear driven and doom and gloom, and they only want to tell you one side of a story. It's very much like that lowering of vibration. It's horrible. So I never ever listen to the news. But I also at this point know that if we were
you could do it, couldn't you? Yeah,
it could be really useful for us. And I think before Omaze came to the UK, house raffles were quite new. There were people that were raffling their houses with Raphael, and they did make it into the tabloids, and it really did elevate their ticket sales, because people see it in printed copy, and it's an exciting thing. But Omaze spend millions, and it's quite an important thing to point out. If people are doing Omaze competitions, Firstly, they're American. They're not a British company.
Yeah.
For some reason, they're not allowed to do house raffles in America, so they do them here. They buy properties from one of the big estate agents. I know there have been some issues with some of the properties that haven't sold for whatever reason. They've been on floodplains or whatever, for whatever reason, they haven't sold. And may spend, from what I understand, up to £10 million a month on advertising, which is huge. And all of that has to be equated out in the ticket sales. So when you buy a ticket from Amaze for one of their properties, bear in mind that they've got to sell huge numbers of tickets to be able to cover their cost on advertising. Whereas our raffle, we've only got to sell 440,000 tickets, which is just, the chances of you winning are just so much higher. What, Emma, can you remind me what the question was? I've completely lost my train of thought again. Sorry.
Yes. No, it's just all about, the raffle and what it works, how it works, basically.
Yeah. So sorry. Yeah. So yeah. And you were talking about the press and where we've been. So
yeah,
so we did actually get featured on the Sun's website, which was great, but unfortunately things get lost very easily on there. It's all about getting onto Instagram, in my experience now. And I have sent emails like all the time out to all of the press. But yeah, it's been really, really hard to get in with the UK press. But we did feature on the Sun's website, and all of a sudden we noticed on our raffle ticket sale list that we were getting all of these like Spanish sounding surnames, people buying tickets from possibly Spain or South America. We weren't quite sure. Anyway, it just so happened I was doing a live one evening and I was talking about how we were suddenly selling all these tickets to somewhere abroad. And this lovely girl from Colombia came on and she said, "Oh yeah, I've seen it in a magazine here in Colombia and we're all talking about your amazing house and loads of people are buying tickets." And so I messaged her afterwards privately to find out, like, where is it being featured? And it started on one site, I think it was called El Tiempo, and then it was picked up by another magazine called Revista Semana, and they have like 2.1 million followers on their Instagram. Wow. And so they did a feature, and then I managed to, through this lovely girl who I was obviously speaking to from the live, it just so happened that she had a friend that worked for Revista Semana, and they got hold of the journalist's name for me, and I contacted the journalist direct, and I asked her if there was any way we could do an interview together, and she was like, "Yeah, sure, when the raffle's done, I'd love to do an interview." I was like, no, we need to do the interview now. So she was like, "Okay." So she went with it. So she asked me to just answer some questions, which I videoed myself, and then she put the whole thing together. And that one feature got 9,000 likes. So it was huge. Amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. And then what happened the other day was I was checking my messages on Facebook and found a message from this French journalist called Elise Stern, who works for TF1. And she had contacted me to say, "I'm really interested in running a feature on house raffles because we're not able to do them in France. There's a law preventing them doing it, although actually Stelios, the owner of Raffle, seems to think that it's perfectly possible for French people to put their houses up on his site because it's a UK-based company." So she contacted me, and actually I didn't see the message for a few days, and I was in a complete panic thinking, "Oh my God, we've missed this opportunity." But I managed to get her phone number, and I WhatsApped her, emailed her, voiced her without sounding too desperate. She then came back to me a few days later and said, "I'd love to do an interview." So they came down on Thursday last week. Yeah, which is really exciting. Well, the thing is, it's going out on their news channel, which is like on prime time French TV. They're like the equivalent of the BBC, and they have 5 million viewers on this particular show. So it's just like a regular news channel that has, at the end, I think, something a bit quirky where they do, a feature on something a bit different. And that's, I think, where we will be slotted in. And then across their social media, they have 51 million viewers a week. So with their TV and social media. So it's huge. If we can get 1% of that, we'll be definitely making it to the target, which is really exciting. Yeah.
Oh, this is so fun. So we're having to come to a close now, but how much time is left on the
On the
raffle?
raffle. Well, we have 15 days. So
15
yeah, we're
days.
really close now.
And what is the what is it? £5 a ticket?
£5 a ticket. You've now signed up as an affiliate, haven't you? So using your affiliate code Emma,
Yeah.
anyone that follows you can, when they enter, buy one ticket and they'll get your free entry as well. So it's a buy one get
so
one.
how does that work? They write in, they go to sign up, and then there's a coupon code or something, is there?
That's it. So it's really important people realise when you go onto Raffle, you have to create an account. You can't just buy a ticket without an account. I'm not quite sure the technicalities around that, but obviously bear in mind if you become the lucky winner, it's quite key they've got your contact details, because imagine otherwise the whole thing would kind of fall on its face. That would be quite key. So you sign up. It takes a little bit of time to do that, or a couple of minutes, and then when you buy your ticket, there's an entry for promo code. So when you enter, put in the promo code Emma. You can only use one promo code per competition. So that's just important for people to know. But we're also running bundles. So when someone buys 2 tickets, they can also get your free ticket, but they'll also get some free tickets on top. And if they buy, if you buy 20 tickets, you get like 50 tickets free. So lots of people are spending 100 quid and they're getting a whole load of extra tickets. We've got some people that have bought like £700 worth of tickets.
No way.
Yeah, I think that was our biggest customer. That's quite a lot of money to spend, isn't it? But they always see the chance of winning this. It's way higher than winning.
Compare the chances of winning compared to the lottery, for instance. It's
the lottery, you've got 1 in 45 million chance of winning the 6 figures, the 6 numbers. And I looked up today, to win the 5 numbers and a bonus is 1 in 7 million chance. So you've got a way higher chance of winning this. So yeah, it's definitely
so exciting. Look, thank you so much, Bella, for sharing your incredible journey. What an incredible development. Obviously, we'll have to keep in contact to know the potential next development that's coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
How amazing to do this, selling a property, but having so many benefits on top of it. And that's what I really love, and why I've been chatting to you. I've just been thinking, about this and how it can change so much in your community, in the charities, in other people being able to, raise funds as well. So I think it's absolutely a beautiful thing to do. And I'm, really proud. And gosh, what incredible things that you've done to be able to get, out there in Colombia, in France, in the Sun, online on the Sun newspaper. Really, congratulations.
Thank you so much, Emma. Can I just say that we're really keen to grow our following on Win a Dream House on Instagram. So, anyone that's watching, if they would like to follow us on Win a Dream House, I'd really appreciate it, because we've got some other ideas of raffles to do following this one, which will be really exciting. And that would be brilliant.
Amazing. Well, Bella, thank you so much. And remember, everyone, go and buy your tickets. And if you'd like one for free, if you write in Emma, that's me, you'll get an extra ticket. So I definitely haven't bought my tickets yet, so I've got to get on there. I would love that. That sounds fantastic. I wouldn't have to move far, would I?
Yes, you wouldn't. And this is such a stunning place to live. I mean, it really, Battle is just beautiful. So we're going to stay in the area. Whatever happens, I want to stay in the Battle area. But I'd highly recommend it for anyone that's looking to move here.
Fantastic. So brilliant. Well, again, thank you so much, Bella. Really appreciate your time here with us. And really can't wait to find out if somebody, moves in or whatever the results are. We'll look forward to
I'll be keeping keeping everyone updated with lives and what's going on over the next few weeks. It's really exciting. And when we actually, on the night of the prize draw, I think it's at 7 p.m. on the 28th, I'm going to do a live. So it'll be we'll find out who the winner is and announce it as it comes in, which will be brilliant.
Amazing.
Yes, very exciting. I can't wait. Absolutely can't wait.
Right.
Yes,
okay, well, take care, and thank you so much for